The village of Makuta was small and quiet, surrounded by green hills and dusty roads. Life there was simple but often hard. In one of the small mud houses at the edge of the village lived a young girl named Nia and her widowed mother, Mama Zawadi. Their house had only 2 rooms with a leaking roof and a small garden behind it where they grew vegetables. Every morning before the sun rose, Nia would wake up, fetch water from the well, and help her mother prepare fruits to sell in the market. They had a small wooden cart filled with bananas, mangoes, and oranges. Mama Zawadi always said, "Work with your hands, my daughter, but never let your heart grow tired." Nia loved those words. They gave her strength, even on days when hunger made her stomach ache. The market in Makuta was always noisy and full of color. Women sold vegetables, men shouted prices, and children ran between the stalls. Nia stood behind her small table, smiling as she called out, "Sweet mangoes, fresh bananas." Her voice was warm and kind, and most people liked her. But some of the richer villagers looked down on her. They saw her torn dress and old sandals and whispered things behind her back. "Look at that girl," one woman said. "She should find a husband to take care of her." Nia heard the words, but she kept smiling. Deep down, she dreamed of something more, not wealth but a life where she could stand with pride and be respected. One hot afternoon, while Nia was arranging her fruits, a convoy of shiny cars stopped near the market. Everyone turned to look. It was a group of city visitors, young men and women dressed in expensive clothes, sunglasses, and jewelry. They laughed loudly as they walked through the dusty market, taking pictures as if everything around them was strange or funny. Nia tried not to stare, but she had never seen such cars before. The group came closer to her stall, talking and laughing. One of the young women wrinkled her nose and said, "Oh, look at this. She's selling fruits in this heat. Can you imagine living like this?" Another man chuckled. "She probably doesn't even know what a real job is." Nia's cheeks burned with shame. She looked down at her hands, pretending not to hear. But their words cut deep. Still, she said softly, "Would you like to buy some mangoes? They are sweet and fresh." The group burst out laughing. "No thank you," one said mockingly. "We don't eat from dirty stalls." Nia felt her eyes sting, but she didn't cry. She stood quietly, holding back her tears. Among the group stood a young man who hadn't spoken, tall, handsome, wearing a white shirt and a silver watch. His name was Prince Kamau, the son of a powerful billionaire who owned several companies in the city. Unlike his friends, Kamau didn't laugh. He watched Nia closely, noticing how she stayed calm even as others mocked her. There was something different about her, a quiet strength that his rich friends didn't have. As his friends walked away, still laughing, Kamau stayed for a moment longer. He looked at Nia's eyes and saw pain in them, but also pride. She wiped her hands on her dress and turned back to her fruits, pretending nothing had happened. Kamau finally spoke. "You shouldn't listen to them," he said softly. "They don't understand." Nia looked up, surprised. "It's all right," she said. "Some people only see what is on the outside." He wanted to say more, but one of his friends called out, "Kamau, come on, let's go." He hesitated, then nodded to Nia and walked away. Nia watched them leave, the dust from their cars rising in the air like a cloud that covered the sky. When they were gone, she sat down slowly. For a moment, she felt her heart break. She wasn't angry, just tired. Later that evening, as she walked home, the sky turned red with sunset. The road was long and her bare feet hurt from walking. Her mother was waiting outside, peeling cassava for supper. "You're late, my child," Mama Zawadi said kindly. "How was the market today?" Nia forced a smile. "It was fine, Mama." Her mother looked at her face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked gently. Nia sat beside her and whispered, "Some people from the city came. They laughed at me because I'm poor." Mama Zawadi sighed. "Let them laugh, my daughter. Remember, people can laugh at your clothes, but they cannot laugh at your heart." Nia nodded slowly. Her mother's words gave her comfort, but inside she made a silent promise, a promise to herself and to her future. That night, as the moonlight fell on their small home, Nia lay awake thinking about the city people, the cars, and the rich young man who had spoken kindly to her. She whispered to herself, "One day I will rise above this. One day they will know my name." From that night on, something changed in Nia. She began to dream bigger. She wanted to learn to build a better life. Even if it took years, she would find a way. She didn't want revenge. She only wanted to prove that a poor girl could shine just as bright as anyone else. The next morning, she woke up before sunrise and went to the market again. The same dusty road, the same stall, but this time her heart was full of new strength. Each fruit she sold felt like a small step toward her dream. The villagers began to notice her determination. "That Nia," one old man said, "she has a light in her eyes. She will go far one day." Nia smiled whenever she heard such words. She didn't know how or when, but she believed she would rise. Far away in the city, Prince Kamau couldn't forget the girl from the market. Her eyes had stayed in his mind, not sad but proud. He didn't know her name, but he felt something stir in his heart. He told himself it was nothing, yet he kept remembering her. Back in Makuta, Nia worked harder every day, not knowing that fate was already writing a story, one that would turn the poor girl from the market into something greater than she had ever imagined. She had no idea that the same prince who saw her that day would one day walk beside her as her husband. But that was for another time. For now, Nia stood under the warm sun, selling her fruits with a smile that no amount of humiliation could take away. And deep inside her heart, her promise still echoed, "One day I will rise above this." The days in Makuta passed slowly, but Nia's heart was full of quiet fire. After the humiliation at the market, she could have chosen anger or shame, but she chose hope instead. Her mother, Mama Zawadi, often sat with her by the fire in the evenings, telling her stories about strength and patience. "My child," she would say softly, "poverty is not a curse. It is only the beginning of a journey. What matters is what you do with your hands and your heart." Those words stayed in Nia's mind like a song. One day as she walked through the village, she stopped near a small hut where an old tailor named Baba Kato worked. He was poor and nearly blind, but his hands still moved with grace when he worked the sewing machine. Nia stood by the door, watching as he repaired an old school uniform for a young boy. "Do you want something, child?" Baba Kato asked without looking up. "Yes," Nia said shyly. "I want to learn how to sew." The old man chuckled. "Sewing is not for the lazy," he said. "It takes patience and strong fingers." "I have both," Nia replied quickly. "Please teach me. I'll work for free. I just want to learn." He studied her for a long moment and then nodded. "Come tomorrow morning." From that day, Nia became his apprentice. She fetched water, cleaned threads from the floor, and helped cut fabric. In return, Baba Kato taught her how to measure cloth, use a needle, and stitch by hand. Her fingers bled at first, but she didn't complain. She worked late into the night, practicing with old fabric scraps her mother gave her. Weeks turned into months and Nia's hands grew steady. Soon she could sew small dresses for village children. Mothers came to her saying, "Nia, make one for my daughter. She has never had a new dress." She charged only a few coins, but the smiles she saw were worth more than gold. Mama Zawadi was proud. "You see," she said, "your hard work is opening doors that poverty tried to close." One afternoon, as Nia sat sewing outside their hut, a young woman named Asha came by. She was a trader who often went to the city to sell food and handmade goods. She noticed the bright blue dress Nia was working on. "That's beautiful," Asha said. "Did you make this yourself?" Nia nodded. "Yes, I make them for the village children." Asha smiled. "You have talent, Nia. I'm taking some goods to the city next week. Would you like me to take one of your dresses with me? Maybe someone there will buy it." Nia hesitated. "Do you think anyone would want something I made?" Asha laughed. "You never know until you try." So Nia gave her one small dress, carefully folded, stitched with bright thread, and decorated with beads made from seeds. She didn't expect much, but she prayed that whoever saw it would smile. A week passed. Then two. Nia almost forgot about it until one morning Asha came running to her house, breathless with excitement. "Nia, you won't believe what happened," she shouted. Nia put down her sewing needle. "What is it?" Asha grinned. "A rich woman in the city bought your dress. She said it was unlike anything she had seen before. She wants to meet the person who made it." Nia gasped. "Who is she?" Asha took a deep breath. "Her name is Queen Amani, the mother of Prince Kamau." Nia froze. She couldn't believe her ears. The same prince whose friends had laughed at her, his mother had bought her dress? It felt like the world was playing a strange trick on her. That evening, Nia told her mother everything. Mama Zawadi's eyes filled with tears. "My child," she said softly, "this is what happens when you do good work with a clean heart. You never know who is watching." The next week, a letter arrived in the village. It was written on fine paper with a golden seal. It read, "To Miss Nia of Makuta, the royal family requests your presence in the city to discuss your designs. Transportation will be provided." The villagers were astonished. No one from Makuta had ever been invited to the city by the royal family. People gathered around her house asking, "Is it true? The queen herself wants to see you?" Nia was nervous but excited. Her mother helped her pack a small bag with her best clothes, a simple blue dress and a shawl. Before she left, Mama Zawadi held her close and said, "Go, my daughter. Walk with courage, not fear. Remember who you are." The next morning, a shiny car arrived to take her to the city. The whole village came out to wave goodbye. As the car drove away, Nia looked out the window and whispered to herself, "This is the beginning." The city was unlike anything she had ever seen. Tall buildings, wide roads, and people dressed in elegant clothes. Her heart pounded as the car entered the royal compound. Guards opened the gates, and soon she was standing before the grand palace. White walls, golden doors, and gardens full of flowers. A kind lady guided her inside to a room filled with light. There, seated on a velvet chair, was Queen Amani. She was elegant and graceful, wearing a long dress of royal colors. Nia bowed nervously. "You must be Nia," the queen said warmly. "I have heard wonderful things about you. Please sit." Nia sat carefully, her hands shaking slightly. The queen picked up the small blue dress from a table nearby. "You made this?" "Yes, your majesty," Nia said quietly. "With my own hands." The queen smiled. "It is beautiful, so full of care and creativity. You have a rare gift, my dear." Nia's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever praised her work like that before. "Thank you, your majesty," she whispered. The queen leaned forward. "I would like you to design more dresses for a charity event next month. Many important people will be there. I want the world to see your work." Nia could barely speak. I would be honored, your majesty." When she left the palace that day, her heart was light. The guards bowed as she passed. The same girl who once sold fruits in the market was now being trusted by the queen herself. She walked out into the city streets, smiling at the sky. Mama was right, she thought. Poverty was only the beginning. Far away in another part of the palace, Prince Kamau sat in his study. His mother walked in holding the little blue dress. "Kamau," she said, "do you remember the girl who made this?" He looked at it carefully and frowned. "No, I don't think so." His mother smiled. "She's from Makuta. You'll meet her soon. She's a remarkable young woman." When she left, Kamau stared at the dress for a long time. Something about it felt familiar, the neat stitches, the simple beauty. And deep inside him, a memory stirred, a girl at the market with tired eyes and a quiet strength. He didn't know it yet, but their paths were about to cross again. This time not as strangers but as two souls whose lives were meant to change forever. The car stopped in front of the royal mansion, its tall gates opening slowly as Nia looked out the window in awe. The place looked like something out of a dream. Large gardens full of flowers, fountains dancing in the sunlight, and guards dressed in neat uniforms. Her heart beat fast, but she took a deep breath and told herself, "Stay calm, Nia. You belong here now." As she stepped out, servants and workers turned to look at her. They whispered among themselves, surprised by the young woman's simple beauty. She wore a plain blue dress, neatly ironed, and her hair was tied back with care. Though she came from a poor village, she carried herself with quiet grace. The queen welcomed her warmly. "Ah, Nia," Queen Amani said, smiling. "I'm so glad you came. Please, let me show you where you'll be working." They walked together through the mansion. Paintings lined the walls, showing past kings and queens. The queen led her to a large room filled with fabrics, sewing machines, and bright lights. "This will be your workspace," she said. "You'll meet the royal designers later today. They'll help you prepare for the charity event." Nia's eyes widened. "Thank you, your majesty. I will do my best." As she unpacked her small bag and began arranging her tools, she didn't notice the man standing at the door, Prince Kamau. He had just returned from a business trip, still wearing his formal suit. His mother had told him about the young designer, and curiosity brought him to see her. But the moment he saw her face, his heart stopped. He remembered her instantly, the girl from the market. The one his friends had mocked while he stood by silently. Guilt burned inside him. He took a step closer, hoping she would not notice his unease. "Welcome to the royal mansion," he said softly. Nia turned and froze. For a moment she didn't recognize him. Then, as her eyes met his, the memory of that painful day came rushing back. Her heart tightened, but she forced a polite smile. "Thank you, your highness," she said quietly, bowing her head. Kamau swallowed hard. He wanted to say sorry, to explain himself, but the words wouldn't come. He could only watch as she turned back to her table and continued her work. Over the next few days, Nia worked tirelessly. The royal designers who at first doubted her, soon grew amazed by her creativity. She used bright African fabrics, added beads, and stitched each design with care. Her dresses carried a warmth that none of the others could match. They told a story of hope and strength. The queen often visited her workspace, smiling as she watched the young woman work. "You have a gift, Nia," she said one evening. "Your hands bring life to every piece of cloth." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Nia replied, her heart full. Prince Kamau began visiting more often, pretending to check on the event plans, but in truth he wanted to watch her work. He admired the way she focused, her quiet confidence, and her kindness to the workers. Once he saw her helping a young maid who had dropped a tray, kneeling to pick up the broken pieces instead of scolding her. "She's different," he thought to himself. "So humble yet so strong." Finally, the day of the charity event arrived. It was held in the royal garden, decorated with lanterns and flowers. Wealthy guests from across the country came, politicians, businessmen, and celebrities. The air was filled with music and laughter. Nia's dresses were the highlight of the evening. Models walked gracefully across the stage wearing her creations, long flowing gowns made from kitenge and ankara fabrics, shining with color. Each dress seemed to tell a story of Africa's beauty and the spirit of its people. When the show ended, the guests burst into applause. Many asked the queen, "Who made these stunning designs?" The queen smiled proudly. "A young woman from Makuta, her name is Nia." Whispers spread through the crowd. "A village girl? Impossible," some said. "But look at her work, it's like magic." Nia stood at the side of the stage, her hands trembling slightly as the queen called her forward. "Come, my dear," the queen said, taking her hand. "You deserve this moment." Nia walked onto the stage as everyone clapped. The lights shone on her, and for the first time she didn't feel small. She stood tall, smiling shyly as the queen introduced her. "This young woman reminds us that greatness can come from anywhere," the queen said. "Talent knows no title or wealth. It grows where there is courage and faith." Prince Kamau watched from the audience, his heart full of both pride and regret. As people cheered for Nia, he remembered the day he had stayed silent when others humiliated her. He felt a sting of shame but also hope. Maybe he could make things right. After the event, many guests came to meet Nia. They praised her designs, asked for her contact, and offered her new projects. The royal photographers took pictures of her beside the queen and the prince. Nia smiled, still trying to believe this was real. Later that night, after the guests had left and the music had faded, Kamau found her in the garden. She was sitting alone on a bench, looking up at the stars. "You did wonderfully tonight," he said softly. She turned, surprised to see him. "Thank you, Your Highness. I'm grateful for the chance your family gave me." He stepped closer. "You earned it, Nia. You deserve everything that comes your way." There was a long silence between them. The cool night breeze carried the faint scent of flowers. Finally, Kamau spoke again, his voice low. "I remember you," he said. "From the market. I was there that day, when my friends treated you badly." Nia looked down, her smile fading. "Yes, I remember too. I'm sorry," he said. "I should have stopped them. I should have spoken up." Nia sighed softly. "It's in the past, Your Highness. I don't hold anger anymore. Life has already repaid me with kindness." He smiled sadly. "You are stronger than most people I know." They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars. Then Nia said quietly, "My mother always told me that humility brings light to dark places." Maybe she was right. Kamau looked at her, his respect deepening. "She raised a remarkable daughter," he said. When Nia finally returned to her room, she felt a strange warmth in her chest. For the first time, she saw the prince not as someone distant and untouchable, but as a man trying to make things right. As she lay in bed, she whispered a small prayer of thanks, for her mother, for her journey, and for the new path that seemed to be opening before her. Outside, the stars shone brightly above the royal mansion, as if blessing the girl from Makuta whose light had begun to shine for the whole world to see. Prince Kamau could not forget the night of the charity event. The image of Nia standing on that stage, her eyes bright with hope, stayed in his mind. A few days later, he visited her workshop in the royal compound. She was bent over her sewing machine, her hands moving quickly and carefully. She looked up when he entered, surprised but smiling politely. "Good morning, Your Highness," she said, standing. He smiled back. "Please call me Kamau when we're not in front of others. You don't have to be so formal with me." She hesitated, unsure if it was proper, but then nodded softly. "All right, Kamau." The sound of his name on her lips made him smile wider. He watched her work that day, amazed by how focused she was. Her hands stitched fabric with patience, and her eyes sparkled with quiet joy. There was no greed in her heart, no pride in her voice, only passion for what she did. From that day, Kamau began visiting more often. Sometimes he brought her new fabrics from the city. Other times he came with tea and snacks, saying it was to keep her company while she worked. The palace staff whispered among themselves, wondering why the prince spent so much time with a village girl. But Nia never acted differently. She stayed humble, always kind, always respectful. One afternoon, while she worked on a dress for the queen, Kamau sat nearby watching her. "You work harder than anyone I know," he said. She smiled gently. "Hard work is what kept me alive, Kamau. When life gives you nothing, you learn to build something with your own hands." He nodded slowly, thinking of his own easy life. "You make it sound simple, but I know it's not." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "It's not simple, but it's possible. I had to believe that my pain had a purpose. Maybe that's why I am here now." Kamau was silent. Her words touched him deeply. In that moment he realized how much he admired her, not for her looks but for her heart. Days turned into weeks and their friendship grew stronger. They shared stories of their pasts. Kamau spoke of the pressure of being a prince, the expectations from everyone around him, and how lonely it could feel. Nia spoke of her mother, Mama Zawadi, and how love, even in poverty, was worth more than gold. One day, Kamau invited her to the royal garden. The air was cool and the sound of birds filled the trees. They sat under a tall jacaranda tree, its purple flowers falling around them like soft rain. "Nia," he said quietly, "do you ever think about the future?" She smiled faintly. "All the time. I want to build my own fashion house one day, not just for myself but for other girls like me who were told they would never be anything." He looked at her, pride shining in his eyes. "You will. I believe in you." She laughed lightly. "That means a lot, coming from a prince." He smiled. "Maybe it's not the prince who believes in you, maybe it's just the man." Her laughter faded. There was a warmth in his tone that made her heart race a little. She didn't know what to say, so she looked away, watching a butterfly land on a flower. From that day on, Kamau began to see the world differently. The things that once mattered to him, the parties, the business meetings, the wealth, all felt empty compared to the moments he spent with Nia. She showed him what peace felt like. But not everyone was happy about their closeness. Some royal advisors whispered to the queen that it would be a disgrace for the prince to love a poor village girl. "She is not of noble blood," they said. "It will bring shame to the family." One afternoon, the queen called her son to her private chambers. "Kamau," she began gently, "I know you care for this girl. She is kind and talented, but you must think carefully. The people expect a royal wedding, not a story from a village." Kamau listened quietly, then said, "Mother, I understand what people expect. But sometimes what people expect is not what the heart needs." The queen sighed, looking at her son with both pride and worry. "Your father will not agree easily." "I am not asking for approval," Kamau said softly. "I am asking for love to be given a chance." Later that evening, Kamau went to Nia's workshop again. She was alone, cleaning up after a long day. When she saw him, she smiled, but there was a hint of tiredness in her eyes. "You look troubled," she said. "Is something wrong?" He shook his head slowly. "Nothing is wrong. But something is changing." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath. "Nia, I can't hide it anymore. I care for you, more than I've ever cared for anyone. You make me want to be a better man." Nia stared at him, shocked. "Kamau, I'm just a village girl. You are a prince. People will never accept it." He stepped closer, his eyes steady. "Let them say what they want. I spent my whole life pleasing others. For once, I want to follow my heart." She felt her heart beating fast. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness but from the weight of his words. "You don't understand what you're risking," she whispered. "I understand perfectly," he said, gently taking her hand. "But I also understand what I'll lose if I walk away from you." There was silence for a moment. The room was filled with the soft sound of the wind outside. Finally, Nia smiled faintly through her tears. "You are a brave man, Kamau." He smiled back. "No. You made me brave." From that night, their love quietly began to grow. They met often, walking through the gardens talking about life and hope. Kamau promised her that he would fight for their love, no matter what stood in the way. People kept talking, but Nia stayed calm. She continued to work, never letting pride or fear change her. And the more the prince watched her, the more certain he became. This was the woman he wanted to spend his life with. Even the queen who once doubted began to see the truth. She saw how happy her son was, how Nia treated everyone with respect. Slowly hearts began to change. Kamau's decision shocked many, but he stood firm. He had seen real beauty, not in riches, not in royal blood, but in the heart of a humble girl who taught him the meaning of love. And as the sun set over the palace one evening, he whispered to himself, "This is the woman I will marry, no matter what it takes." The news spread like wildfire across the kingdom. Prince Kamau was to marry Nia of Makuta, the village girl who once sold fruits at the market. At first, people thought it was a rumor, but when the royal palace made the official announcement, the entire country began to talk. Some were shocked, some were amazed, and others were simply happy for the prince who had chosen love over wealth and class. In Makuta, Nia's home village, celebration filled the air. Drums echoed across the fields, and children ran through the streets shouting her name. "Our Nia is going to be a princess," they cried. Women danced with joy, and men gathered under trees, nodding proudly. Many who once mocked her for her poverty now spoke her name with respect. Mama Zawadi, her mother, stood outside their small house with tears of joy in her eyes. "My daughter," she whispered, "you have brought honor to us all." Days before the wedding, Nia returned to Makuta to see her mother. The villagers came to greet her, amazed at how beautiful she looked. She was the same Nia they had always known, kind, humble, and full of warmth, but now there was a glow about her, a confidence that came from knowing her worth. She hugged her mother tightly. "Mama," she said, "everything I am, I owe to your faith in me." Mama Zawadi smiled and touched her cheek. "You were born to shine, my child. Never forget where you came from." As the wedding day approached, the palace buzzed with excitement. Designers from around the world offered to make Nia's wedding dress, but she politely refused them all. She wanted to make it herself. For weeks, she worked in her workshop, stitching the gown with care. It was made from white silk and hand-woven African fabric, decorated with golden beads that shimmered in the light. Every stitch carried her journey, her pain, her courage, and her triumph. On the morning of the wedding, the sun rose over the royal gardens, painting the sky with soft gold. Guests from all over Africa arrived, kings, queens, and leaders, dressed in their finest clothes. The air was filled with music, laughter, and the scent of flowers. Nia stood before the mirror, dressed in her handmade gown. Her heart raced, but her face was calm. Mama Zawadi stood beside her, wearing a simple but beautiful kitenge dress. She held her daughter's hands and said, "You walked through pain with grace, and now you walk into joy with strength. Remember, my daughter, true royalty lives in the heart." Nia smiled and hugged her. "I'll remember, Mama." As the palace bells rang, the crowd stood. Prince Kamau waited at the altar, dressed in a royal white robe with golden embroidery. His eyes searched the path until he saw her. For a moment he forgot the world around him. Nia walked slowly down the aisle, her gown glimmering under the sunlight. Every step she took told a story, of humiliation, of struggle, of victory. When she reached him, Kamau took her hand and whispered, "You look like a dream." Nia smiled gently. "I'm not a dream, Kamau. I am the same girl from Makuta who once sold fruits at the market." He nodded, his voice soft. "And that is exactly why I love you." The ceremony was simple but beautiful. The queen smiled proudly as she watched them exchange vows. Even those who once doubted the union were moved by the love between them. When the priest declared them husband and wife, cheers filled the air. Dancers spun, drums beat loudly, and songs of celebration rose high into the sky. Later, during the royal feast, guests shared stories of Nia's journey. Some said she was proof that destiny could not be changed by wealth or background. Others said she was a blessing to the royal family. Nia moved among the guests, greeting them with warmth. She thanked the servants, hugged the villagers who had traveled from Makuta, and even smiled at those who once doubted her. As the night grew quiet, Kamau and Nia walked together in the palace garden, away from the noise. The moonlight reflected in the small pond beside them. Nia stopped and looked at her reflection, a princess now but still the same girl inside. Kamau looked at her and said softly, "You once saw yourself as poor. But you were never poor, Nia. You had courage, kindness, and strength, things money can never buy." She turned to him, her eyes shining. "You once saw me as poor, now you see my worth." He smiled and took her hand gently. "You were always worthy. I just didn't see it before." They stood there for a while watching the stars. The wind whispered through the trees as if blessing their love. Nia thought of all the nights she had cried, all the days she had worked with tired hands, all the moments she had doubted herself, and she realized it was all worth it. Her story had come full circle. The girl who was once humiliated for her poverty was now a princess, not because of luck, but because she never gave up. Her kindness had opened doors that pride never could. Her faith had carried her through storms. In the days that followed, Nia used her new position not to live in luxury, but to help others. She opened a foundation for poor girls across the kingdom, teaching them sewing and business skills. "Every woman deserves a chance to rise," she said in one of her speeches. "If I could do it, so can you." People across the land began to speak her name with admiration. To them, she was not just a princess, she was a symbol of hope. Mothers told their daughters about her, fathers taught their sons to respect women like her. The village of Makuta became known as the birthplace of the princess who changed lives with her courage and grace. Every year, Nia visited her mother in Makuta. She would sit under the old mango tree where she once sold fruits and watch the children play. They would gather around her, asking her to tell the story of how she became a princess. She would smile and say, "It's not about becoming rich or royal. It's about believing in yourself even when no one else does." And when she looked at Kamau, the prince who had once watched her from afar, she saw not just a husband, but a man who had learned the true meaning of love. Their marriage became a story told for generations, a reminder that no one is too poor to dream, and no dream is too big for a humble heart. From that day, Nia's name shone brighter than jewels, not because she was a princess, but because she had turned pain into purpose. Her story traveled far and wide, teaching everyone that faith, hard work, and kindness could turn even the deepest wounds into something beautiful. And so, Nia of Makuta lived her days in peace and love, a true queen in spirit, forever remembered as the girl who rose from dust to destiny.